been attending these series or have been responding to some of the emails that we had sent out with the recordings, you'll know that we've been actively trying to figure out what is the best way to help facilitate conversations with this particular community, right? Our bootcamp community. And all the feedback has suggested that everyone wanted us to create a LinkedIn group. So please sit tight. We're going to seed it with some of the information that we've covered over the past series of boot camps. We want this to have a wealth of information for you. So me and my entire CS team, we're working to pre-populate it with decks and templates and resources, just so that when you get there, there's a lot to chat about. But this is where we're going to keep the conversation going. I will say, as a close second was Slack, but LinkedIn group won. And so this is the direction we're headed. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't consider Slack as an alternative in the future. But like we talked about, starting with community, you just have to start small. You just have to start somewhere. So this is our small somewhere. So stay tuned. What we're likely going to do is promote the link to this bootcamp with our last recording. So today's session's recording will have a link to that bootcamp. We'll probably do some additional promotion around it as well. So stay tuned. If you missed the email, I'll probably be promoting it on my LinkedIn page. So if we're not connected or not following my content, please go ahead and connect with me. That way you don't miss that. But we're really excited to, again, give you all a place to network and continue this dialogue. Again, our boot camps have provided a wealth of information, I think, tools and resources for the entire community. And we want you to be able to kind of go back, pick up anything that you've missed, give us feedback on what you've used and how it's worked for you, share your modifications with us, right? The idea here is, I'm trying to provide you all with some best practices and a place to get started, but that doesn't mean that everything I say and share is the end all be all for your programs at your companies. So hopefully this is just led to inspire you and give you some creative ideas on how you can go out and build your customer success organizations in a way that's going to drive the most value for your customers. So really excited to introduce our community here, which will be on LinkedIn as a group, the ClientSuccess CS Leadership Bootcamp community, and more to come on that. So please sit tight. And thank you all for your feedback. So anybody who did vote, fill out the survey, and did let us know where to continue that conversation. Lots of great feedback, and excited to roll this out. So for today's topic, which, like I mentioned, is the last part, the fourth installation of this series. Now, again, for those of you who are just joining, this is the last installation of this series, but we will continue with our bootcamp series in October, where we will release 4 more topics. And so, of course, I always love to get feedback from the community. So if there is a topic that you are just burning to hear me talk about, feel free to drop me a note on LinkedIn. I'm very active there, and I try to get to as many messages as possible. We've got a short list of some really good, interesting topics, but always happy to make modifications based off of your needs and your interest. So if there's a topic that you're really interested in hearing about, please let me know. Otherwise, I promise you, we will have some really phenomenal content. So come back in October. For today, our last session, we're going to talk about CSM onboarding. Now, I think this is a really interesting time to be talking about this because there is this, I think, looming recession, right, that a lot of companies are talking about. A lot of companies are being very conservative with budgets, and maybe if they've hired a few people, or if you have 1 or 2 headcounts left for the year, maybe not as many as you thought, we want to make sure that we're maximizing the value that we get from every new individual we bring into our organization and making sure that that's mutually beneficial. So today's session is going to be all about how do we onboard a new CSM, specifically without a formal training team. Now, I don't know about all of you and all of your companies, but we're pretty lean here at ClientSuccess. And so we rely on each other and what we already have in existence to help each of our new hires get acclimated and learn what they need to learn to provide as much value for our customers as possible. Now, if you're a much larger organization and you have a training and enablement team and you have all of your HR team and staff ready to help and welcome all of your new hires on board formally and roll out a program, good for you. I'm excited for you. I love that for you. Sadly, I've worked at a lot of companies where we just didn't have that luxury, and want to make sure that everyone is thinking really creatively about how do you get each of your new hires ramped and ready in a way that's going to make them feel good and supported, but also, like I said, drive a lot of value for your customers, more important, your business. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So I am not coining this. This is not my statement. I am not the only one to have ever used this, but hopefully you're familiar with the phrase that feels like this: employee success equals customer success. Now, I know that if my customer success team is empowered with information and resources and the tools that they need and the support and autonomy, that they are going to help make sure our customers are wildly successful. And so I really do stand behind the statement that employee success equals customer success. Now, this does not just mean your customer success or your frontline team, right, by any means. It literally means every employee, right? If you're hiring developers or engineers, right, making sure that they have the tools and the tech stack to build their processes, build a product fast and efficiently and correctly, right, in a meaningful way for your customers. If it's your marketing team, right, giving them what they need, the information, the insights, the coaching, it's about everybody. And because customer success is the outcome of an organizational effort, right, it's not the output of a team or any one individual. In order to get to that state of customer success as the outcome, you've got to make sure that all of your employees are successfully integrated into your business. And so we're going to walk through all the different ways that we can do this with as limited resources as possible. You know me, I like to get super creative and use what you have. But this is going to be a really, hopefully, efficient way for you to get started if you got nothing. So one thing I want to make sure that we're clear on, right? For me, when I think about my leadership style, my team knows this, I define myself as a servant leader. And I don't just coin myself as a servant leader. I do believe that my team would emulate that same sentiment, because I do really think that my existence, my purpose in our organization is to ensure that my team is successful so they can do their jobs, right? And so whether that's providing them with process, coaching, information, insight, tools, anything that they need is my responsibility, right? So as a leader, I think you're responsible for providing your employees with everything that they need. And if you do that and you do it well and you lean into that, I am confident that you are going to build the most powerful and impactful team you've ever led. But I will say that with its caveat, the most important thing that they need is information. Right. So we're going to dive into this, but it is really, really critical that you think about that. And now information, right, is information about everything. It's about process, it's about your product, it's about your customers, it's about space, it's data. But all of that information is going to help inform them and empower them to do the best work they can do. Right. So this is going to be critical, and I think a big core component of what you'll see today. So I want to talk about your employees' knowledge journey. So, when I was thinking about our very lean customer onboarding CSM onboarding program today at ClientSuccess, and some of the more elaborate ones that I've built in my professional career, I've mapped out that there's really 5 kind of buckets of information that your customer success managers are going to need out the gate. Now, right, this is going to evolve and change over time, but if we're thinking about their onboarding, which is like, let's just say first 90 days or so, these 5 buckets of information became the most important as I thought about things. The first one is your company knowledge. It is so critical that every employee joining your organization knows who you are, right, as a company. What are your goals? What are your values? What is the proposition? Why do you exist as a company, right? They need to know and be connected to everything. You know what I love to share with new employees is the story. Right? The history of how your company got to where they are today. I think it's really, really important. It's validating for them to see that journey and to know everything that as a company you went through, all the highs, all the lows, but all that information is super critical to really get them to feel like they are connected to your business. So making sure that they have as much information about your company as possible. The next one is going to be industry knowledge. Now, unless you're a subject matter expert, which not every CSM is, right? A lot of us are entering into certain industries for the first time, fresh, learning something new. We've got to really brush up on that, because in order to play a consultative role to our customers, we have to be able to lean in as experts. The only way to do that is to really be informed about the industry that we're serving, right? And who those individuals are. So please make sure that you're spending time brushing up on that. Now, the cool thing, and I think the advantage that my CSMs have is that they are CSMs, right? So they inherently are subject matter experts because they do the job that our customers do. But I will tell you, I've worked in a lot of different spaces. I've worked in BI, I've worked in telematics, SaaS apps management. These are spaces I was not terribly familiar with. But one of the things that really helped me, especially as a leader, get acclimated into a place where I can actually provide value was that industry knowledge. So understanding that is super critical. The next bucket here is customer knowledge, right? You need to make sure that your CSMs, or any frontline team for that matter, has a good, intimate understanding of who your customers are, right? Who are they? What are the personas that you serve? What are the challenges that they come to you to overcome? What does successful look like for them? But really understanding your customer information is going to be really critical for them. So when you think about making sure that we've got this knowledge checklist, that you've got a ton of information there about your customers. The next thing is product knowledge, right? For many CSMs, you're going to have to be very intimately familiar with your product. Now, if you work in an organization where you've got a technical account manager and a product expert and all these fancy technical roles that overlay in the account team, maybe you don't need to be the product expert. But I will say that's probably not the standard. And more often than not, our CSMs are going to have to really have a good understanding of our product. They're going to have to be able to understand how to train and enable end users on it, understand the value propositions behind each of the different things that your solution does. So deep product knowledge is going to need to be a focus. And the last bucket that I've mapped out here is your process knowledge, right? So it's cool, right? If you know about the company and the industry and your customers and your product, but how you bring all that together through your internal and external processes is going to be really critical, because that's how you get stuff done, is that understanding of that process and being able to execute against it. So these were the 5 buckets that I thought, every CSM and every leader, if you have no real framework, you can pull together information to build a really, really successful new hire onboarding if you follow these 5 kind of categories. So let's talk through what are the ways that we can go and find these resources that is low calorie for us as leaders to just pull together. Because again, we're thinking about this lens of, we don't have an entire training enablement team. We've got to figure out, how do we do this with limited resources? So I'm a big fan of leverage with what you have. Again, we're a lean team here at ClientSuccess, so I don't have somebody who's dedicated to compiling all these resources and rebuilding everything and making it look all perfect and beautiful. But what we do have is a wealth of things that already exist, that if you pull them together in a central repository, can serve as an amazing resource for new hires. So what I've done here is I took those 5 categories of knowledge that I said, these 5 buckets are going to be the most critical for you, especially if you're a new CSM yourself. Again, this is important for you to lean into and places where you can go. But as a leader, if you're thinking about, hey, listen, I got to build a new hire checklist and a repository of things that they can go and access and links and all that, this is it. This is going to help you get started with the quickest V1, and then you can build on it over time. So let's start with company knowledge. Now, as a CS leader, I encourage my team to go and research all of their customers, because I want them to understand who their customers are. And so there's a lot of places that I send them to go learn about this information. And so what I've done is I've listed out some of those, because if it works for my CSMs to go and learn who their customers are, it'll work for your team as they're getting acclimated on your business as well. The first place I start, your website. Seems like the most obvious aha, and like duh, but I will tell you, I have seen so many new CSMs, or again, new individuals, join a company and not have reviewed the website in its entirety, right? Think about a well-structured company website and how many resources on there. You probably have case studies and all of your product information and things that you can download, right? Like white papers and other resources that are maybe meant for your prospects, but as a new hire in the business, wow, what a place to get started. I'm sure you've got webinars and videos and customers and testimonials, right? All of those things live on your website. Yet for some reason, that's not always the most commonly thought of place to start when you are a new hire. So if you're a leader, please start by sending your CSM to your website. Don't just have them skim it and say, great, I looked at it, it looks beautiful, filled out a form, I understand how it works. No, the intent here is to go and research it. Really, really read what's there, read those case studies, download those documents, go through it. Go research the customers who left the testimonials, read the folks who are part of case studies, go read the articles on the blog, right? How many of us have really thorough, elaborate blogs that are out there with a wealth of information? Well, those blogs are usually intended for your prospects, right, or your customers to read, which means how much value as a new hire can you get from that? A ton. So go deep on your website and make sure that you're intimately familiar with your company and all the things that you do. The next thing, Crunchbase. I love Crunchbase for a multitude of reasons. I get a ton of information about leadership, investments, all of these things, right? So Crunchbase is another wonderful resource for you to go to. You can drop your company name in there and just see what's available publicly about your company. Now, I will tell you, guess what? You know who else is looking at all this stuff? Your customers, your prospects. So it's also important for you to see what they're seeing. I will tell you, my favorite thing about bringing a new hire on board is all of the feedback that we get about things that are wrong, right? Like, oh, hey, Kristi, do you know that there's a typo on this? Or this link doesn't link to that page? Or, hey, that video doesn't have our logo on it, right? Like something even as simple as that. Go read and consume all the things that your customers and your prospects are getting access to. So ton of information there on Crunchbase as well. I love G2. Hopefully some of you, if not all of you, are familiar with G2 as a website, but that's where you're going to go and leave software reviews. Now, why I love G2, especially as somebody starting a company, I get to go read all the things that are being said about my company, right? My customers go there, they're leaving reviews. So I get to see the good, the bad, the ugly, right? Who's saying these things, who loves us, who's struggling with us, especially as somebody who's going to be a CSM, I might be working with those customers. So understanding early their sentiment of our company, of our product, really, really powerful stuff. Now, another thing that I love about G2, go research your competitors. Go see the things that other folks are saying about your competitors, right? Like, what are the benefits? What are the differentiators? There's a lot of really great stuff there. So go look at your competitive landscape. This will also help you immensely as you think about industry knowledge, but a lot of information there. But seeing what customers are saying about you, really, really valuable stuff. LinkedIn. Something else I tell everybody is like, go add your company page on LinkedIn. This way you're alerted of all the updates. LinkedIn is also a great way, especially as a new hire, to go and connect with all of your colleagues, right? Go see who works at your company, add them, go see who they are, what their interests are, what they're talking about on social media. Go see where they went to school with, right? The same things that we would do to build rapport with our customers or prospects is the same principle of how we might want to go and start to build those relationships internally as well. So if LinkedIn has all that information, use it to your advantage, right? The same things that you would do for your customers, do for your internal colleagues. Google, listen, do yourself a favor, jump your company name into Google and see what comes back. I am confident you will find a lot more than just your company's website, and it's always good to see what people are saying. One cool thing that I have found at a couple companies is by dropping in our company name into something just as broad as Google, I would read different community forums and blog posts of people that were talking about our company, our product, and how they've used it, how, you know, their thoughts on it, how they're talking about it as it corresponds to like the competitive landscape. So again, just really cool information that you can have readily available. Now, again, as a leader, all you're doing is pointing your new CSM in these directions. And I'm telling you, you've got days and days worth of research and information that they're going to go get a ton of value from. And the last one that I have here is Dun & Bradstreet. This is not, this is usually a paid for service. So you probably only get a little bit of information from there, but if this is something that you do have access to, maybe your sales team does, also good to see your company information there, again, what's available, as well as the competitive landscape. So again, just another resource that I've used in the past, which always has a ton of great information. So those are some of the resources. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, so this is not the only place you can go, but these resources have served me well in the past, and especially as a new hire, will help you learn a lot about who your company is. Now, the next bucket here is your industry knowledge. Now, again, like I said, for my team, I feel like we get to cheat a little bit because there is so much customer success information out there that if somebody was new to customer success and joining our company, they can go and find a ton. I'd probably point them in the direction of my boot camps, but industry knowledge. First thing you can do is go check out some accredited organizations, right? So maybe there's a place where your professionals are getting certified, or organizations that they're a part of, being able to see what's available there and that information. Google, this could probably be anywhere, but any of these columns, but go Google the industry, right? So if I dropped customer success into Google, or like, what is customer success, or why is customer success important? I'm gonna go find a ton of information. So go do the same thing as it applies to your industry. Go figure out what's going on there. Forums and community boards. Again, we are fortunate here in customer success to have a wealth of information across all of our community around the world. So many of you are here today, thank you. But there's a lot of conversations happening, whether they are in these Slack community groups, LinkedIn, Gain, Grow, Retain as a private community board, right? There are a ton. So go and research that, right? I'm sure your industry, maybe they don't have as many as we do here in customer success, but every industry has some resources. Go and check those out. Follow some bloggers, right? So if there are like known experts in your industry, go and follow them on LinkedIn, go connect with them on Twitter, go connect with them anywhere they're sharing information. If they've got a blog, go subscribe to it, get alerts on their LinkedIn so that way you don't miss any of that content. But using the community is a great avenue to go learn as much as you can about the industry. Professional associations, this could even be, events that are held for your industries, but go find what are those professional associations, and what can you learn about folks that participate really actively in those. And the last thing is I like white papers. I love anything that's like meaty with a lot of information and going to give me a wealth of information. White papers usually do a really great job of that, and most industries have resources like that. So again, not stopping here. Of course, you can go to Gartner and Forrester and all these other places to go get more industry knowledge. These are just a couple places that I think are really easy to start. So again, if you're a CS leader, all I'm proposing here is maybe you have a tab for all 5 of these areas and put some links there about how you want your team to go use those as they're getting acclimated. The third bucket here is customer knowledge. This is where you want to encourage your CSMs to learn as much about their customers as possible. So I'd love to start with customer feedback. So being able to get access to that. So whether you guys are doing NPS surveys or you have a voice of customer program or something where you're getting early access to customer feedback and somebody can go read all of that, I think that's an amazing place to start. Hearing what your customers say about you, this kind of goes back to even using G2 as a great resource there. But even if internally you've got surveys or programs that have allowed your customers to share that feedback, really, really powerful stuff. Go through it. Right? Read it, make some notes, understand trends and behaviors, right? Like, so as a new hire for me, what I always love about doing that is like, great, here are things that are working really well for our customers. Here are things that aren't working well. Here are things that we're not doing for them. So I like to look at it through like that start, stop, continue framework, and being able to see all of that customer feedback and kind of bucket out what I'm hearing allows me as a leader to think about this as like, what do I want to lean into? But as a CSM, you're working with these customers. So you're going to almost start to understand what are going to be challenges for your customers and what are going to be the things that they're going to get a ton of value from. Something else I love is the product review. Review product ideas. So maybe you guys have something like Canny, or your product team has just an Excel tracker with all of the customer feedback around the product. But I love to see, what are my customers asking for, right? What does our product not do today that they are really keen on having it do for them? There's a ton to learn there. And if you're a CSM, it helps you understand your customers, but then also is giving you that product knowledge as well. So there's dual benefit to that. Someplace else to go is review analytics. I love product and usage data. Maybe you attended last week and heard me talk all about it, but there is so much to learn about how your customers are using your solution today. Now, also as a CSM, you know what also is powerful? If they're not using your solution at all, understanding that too, because that'll be a big part of your job. So understanding those behaviors, right? To your customers, are they highly engaged? They give a lot of feedback. Are they using your product? Are they using all aspects of it? Are there certain areas that they're using more than others? Different customers or personas using certain things, right? So understanding that will help make you a very informed consultant and allow you to lean in a strategic way. I'm big on having customer conversations. If you're a new hire or a new CSM, I highly encourage you to go and meet with a couple customers. Now, as a leader, I would highly recommend you to empower your new hire to go have some of those conversations as part of their ramp. It's fine to find some friendly customers, but I'd also say allow them to hear from customers that maybe aren't having a great experience as well. Knowledge is power. right? So give them the option to go and interview customers. I know some folks are like, oh, well, it's new and we don't want to take up more time from our customers. Guess what? More often than not, your customers will be happy because what you'll do with that information, hopefully, is enhancing their experience and everything that they're getting out of the partnership. So lean into that. Don't be afraid. And the last place, definitely not the least by any means, but go in the direction of your CRM. So maybe you're using something like Salesforce or HubSpot or Zoho or some other solution as your CRM. Head over there. There's probably a ton of customer information that you can go and see, lots of great reports and data to lean into. If your organization is using a customer success platform, so like ClientSuccess, go in there, right? Like go sort through all of your customer data. We've got an area of our platform called our client grid that you can basically go and sort all of that data 100,000 different ways and understand a whole bunch of different stories and themes. So go into your CRM, go into your customer success platform, and go learn who your customers are and what they're doing. The next bucket here is your product knowledge, right? Hopefully at some point you've started to record onboarding or product training calls. Maybe again, if you're super early stage, you're at least recording some of those demos. Maybe you have a top performing salesperson who just demos your product just right. Record that, right? Make those resources available so that when you have a new hire come on board, they can go and watch those recordings, right? Be able to give them assets. We're all using Zoom. We're all here today on Zoom. So there's a lot that you can do with the tools that you already have at your disposal. So if you're a CSM today and you don't have anything, maybe you propose to your leader, hey, Kristi said that a great resource is to have some product training videos. I really love recording videos. I think I do a great job talking about our product. I'm going to go record some of those so that way we have them readily available. Great way for you as a CSM to step up. But those recordings really helpful, and not just for your CSMs, for your entire new hire or across anyone in your organization, right? Your knowledge base, hopefully you have a knowledge base or a resource center where you send your customers with information about your product. Good or bad, it probably has some information there that'll be really useful for your customer success team. So allow them to go there and start to read more about your product and what it does. Maybe you've got different content types there as well. So like videos or short form stuff. Knowledge bases usually have a wealth of information. Shadow a CSM, right? Hopefully this is part of your program, but really low calorie effort for a leader is to say, hi, new CSM, go follow existing CSM. This person does a great job, emulate what they do. Shadowing goes a long way, right? You get to see somebody applying all the things that you've just started reading about, right? Whether it be your process or this information or your product, things that you've been watching. Go shadow somebody live. Shadow support. I love this, and I feel like not enough of us do it, but your support team is answering a ton of really interesting tickets about your product. You're also able to see the themes of what are your customers asking about. Sometimes it's things that they just haven't been trained or enabled on. Sometimes it's things that they need help with. Other times it's product ideas or recommendations that they might have. But shadow support, it really helps you, I think, get acclimated to your product and learn a ton. Wealth of information there. Hopefully you have a strong support person that will allow you to not be disruptive, but kind of ride along. And then lastly, if you have an onboarding team. So if you are not a full stack CSM being somebody who manages the entire life cycle of the partnership, you might have an onboarding team. You might have a professional services team, an implementation team, whatever you want to call them. Every company has something different. Go and shadow them, right? So again, I do see in the chat there's a question about how do you shadow when people are remote? Join a Zoom, right? It's very easy to do that. I have CSMs who are leading calls with customers. You just hop onto that. If you've got a support person who's triaging and reading tickets, you allow them to have their screen open while you kind of take notes, maybe ask some questions. I do think that technology empowers us to get creative with the things that we may have done in person in the past. It also allows you to start to facilitate relationship development and building with cross-functional teams. So lots of value there, but definitely get creative with how you use your technology. The last thing I'll call out here is that process knowledge. So being able to make sure that you've got some of your key processes documented, that's going to be important. So this isn't like a super low calorie one because you do have to put some work here. But even if you are a smaller organization with early stage new processes, get some of those documented. Be able to put some pen to paper and say, these are the things that I need every CSM to do. And then make that a part of what they're researching and understanding and learning as they're coming on board. So your key processes should be documented for their reference and learning. And then also partner with cross-functional teams on process communication. There's a lot of things, especially as CSMs, that we do that involve our cross-functional teams, right? Marketing, sales, product. Lean into those relationships because they probably have some processes. Maybe they have them documented. Don't reinvent the wheel, copy, paste, put them into this doc for your new hires. But basically, what we want to do is make sure that they're familiar with not only your internal processes for your organization, but how they're supposed to work with their peers as well. So lots of information here. Like I said, this is a great, quick little cheat sheet. All that it would require you to first time doing it, go and grab the links, go find these resources, put everything together, or point them in the right direction and let them go and empower them to do it themselves. If you are onboarding your first CSM and you don't have any of this and you feel like me and almost don't have any time, say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. CSM, here are the things I want you to go and go pull together. It would be super cool if you just take what you find and drop it into an Excel or Google Docs. That way we have it for future new hires. So you can even use your new hire who might be doing this for the first time to help you go and get all this collected and documented. So very creative ways to, again, leverage what you have. Now, another part of a new hire onboarding experience is going to be connecting with those stakeholders. So I want to make sure that you're putting together a list of who are the key people that this new hire should go and meet with. I will tell you always marketing. Hopefully, maybe your marketing team is very focused on prospecting, and that's okay, but hopefully they're doing something to support the customer base. It'd be really great to understand, like, what do your advocacy programs look like? What are your customer marketing initiatives? If you hold events or things like that, like field marketing, what are they doing? But allow the CSM to learn as much as possible about the programs and initiatives that are underway or some of your future plans, but make sure that you're connecting them with somebody from marketing. Now, if you're a smaller organization, maybe it's your CMO or your VP of marketing. If you're a larger organization, maybe they got to meet with like 2 or 3 different people because you've got a field marketer and a brand marketer and a customer marketer. That's okay. Just make sure that you have a list of the who's who in your zoo of who your new CSM needs to meet. And that way they can go and facilitate those conversations. Sales. I literally grabbed the wrong emoji for this. I don't mean to have the downward pointing thumb. This is me working very hard at night. But you want your sales team to meet with your team to talk about what does the sales process look like, right? What does it look like start to finish? What are the conversations that take place? How do they determine what a good customer fit looks like? What's the sales strategy? How do they bring in prospects into their pipeline? So what does it look like kind of start to finish? Really helpful, especially as customer success is usually the second leg of that initiative. You've got kind of marketing, and then you get sales. Usually it's customer success somewhere thereafter. So understanding what that looks like from your customer's perspective, right? When they come to your website, they go through that process, your sales journey, all that happens, and then leading them to the customer experience team. So any of the key people on your sales team, really critical that they meet with. Sometimes it's your VP, maybe it's a CRO. I also think there's a ton of value of connecting your CSM with maybe one of your top performing AEs, right? Allow them to shadow a few demo calls, those discovery conversations. So that way they start to hear the questions that your sales team are asking. Those are going to be important for them to understand contextually about why they're asking, but more importantly, how do they help deliver on that stuff later down that life cycle? So lots of value there in connecting not only with the leadership team, but individual contributors there as well. I also don't hate the idea of having them shadow or work with an SDR. That job is super, super hard. And guess what? SDRs get customers to respond, right? Prospects to respond. Sometimes as CSMs, we struggle to get our customers to respond. Learn those tactics. I really, really love that. So don't be afraid to also partner them with a really high performing SDR or whatever you call them. Some people are SDRs, BDRs, whatever your name is, for the folks that go and prospect and build the pipeline for your sales team. The next is your customer experience team, right? You probably have folks in technical support, or hopefully you do. Maybe you have an onboarding team. Maybe you have professional services. You've got other CSMs for sure, account managers. Maybe you have renewal managers. All of the different stakeholders that live in that customer experience organization are going to be critical for your new hire to understand their roles, what they do, how they do it, why they do it. So make sure that you're figuring out who are the key individuals for them to meet in that organization, because that will be really helpful for them. Now, especially as other CSMs, because again, we're talking about CSM onboarding, allow them to connect with their peers. One of the things that I highly encourage when I bring in a new CSM is I want them to go meet with all of our CSMs. Now, of course, if you're an organization with like hundreds of thousands of CSMs, maybe not. But if you're a smaller team and it's possible, build those relationships early, encourage that. I think it goes a long way in helping and building that collaboration long-term. And then lastly here is product. You're going to work very closely with your product team. It does not matter if you're not a product-led organization. Your customers have feedback about your product, good, bad, or otherwise, and you want to make sure that they understand who to go to, that they understand what your roadmap looks like, right? And your release cycle, and how do you bring product to market, product escalations, pipeline management, all of these things. So there's a lot you can do there in facilitating those conversations. Now, it could be, hey, I want you to meet with our product manager or program manager. It could be, I want you to meet with our VP of product or our chief product officer or our CTO or CIO or CISO or whatever you have kind of in that technology arm of your business. But find the right people and make sure that you're connecting them, right? You want to empower those conversations. So those are some of the key stakeholders. So create a list of the people. And what I've always done for my CSMs is really give them a little kind of short form, because you don't want to script the conversation, but say, hey, here are the folks I want you to meet with. Here are some of the questions you might want to ask these individuals. And it just helps prompt a good, healthy, open dialogue where they're going to get the most from it. So really great if you can go and not only create that list, but add those prompts as well. Data. These charts are all fake. These graphs don't mean anything. But what I wanted to visualize for you all here is that there is a ton of information about your company, your performance, and your customers that your new CSM should be intimately familiar, right? What is your current renewal rate? What's your current churn rate? What does product adoption look like, right? Are they adopting all of the products, some of the products, a few of the products, none of your products? So make sure that you understand some of that. Maybe you've got customers by various segments. Well, go get them visibility into how your different segments perform, what the challenges are by segment. Do we see different adoption across these? Are there different industries that you need to be paying attention to? Case studies by industry, use cases by industry, all of that stuff. So maybe it's not just by segment, it could be by vertical, industry, all of these things. So make sure that you're allowing them to go deep and understand how you break out and categorize your customers and thematically the information they can learn about that. The next one is going to be logo retention. Revenue is important. Logos are important as well, especially if you're a growing company, especially if you're an organization out there who's fundraising. Logos matter. And this is why sometimes we keep poor fit customers, because sadly that logo retention matters. So make sure that you're intimately familiar with that as well. I will say, get some trended information as well. So what does your net revenue retention, your gross revenue retention, and your logo retention look like month over month or year over year? I like year over year a little bit better than just month over month, because sometimes there's seasonality, sometimes there's industry related events. I used to work for a company that one of our larger industries was education. And so we would definitely see a decrease in engagement and adoption during the summer months because most schools are closed. So we'd see seasonality there. I also worked with a lot of retail companies in my past. And so they had seasonality, right? Especially during holiday season. So understanding it year over year sometimes tells a better, more comprehensive story than month over month. So that's why I'd recommend that. But understand those three methods, or kind of three metrics rather, as they compare to one another and year over year. Upsell versus expansion, or if you also do cross-sell, right? So like upsell might be adding additional products, expansion might be buying more of what you have, cross-sell might be selling to a new division or a parent or a subsidiary or a sister company, right? So understanding all the different motions of growth and how did they perform, right? Where are you stronger? Is expansion a bigger part of your growth strategy than upsell or cross-sell, because those just take longer? But understanding how those three components, or 4 or 5, like whatever your strategy is, how all those things play a part in growth for your business, especially if you are a customer success professional who will be responsible for revenue or customer growth. Understanding that and the behaviors, really, really critical. And the last one is customer health. Understanding what your customers look like in terms of health, whether you're evaluating health based on engagement or product adoption or other behaviors. Hopefully you've got a way to understand or track customer health, and then you're using that to really educate and inform your CSMs. But these are not the only metrics. These are some examples of data that I might point my new CSM in the direction of. You might have a ton more information. You might have a beautiful Tableau dashboard built somewhere with tons of information, but really just start to understand where can they find the things that are most important to them in terms of the decision making that they'll have to make as they step into that role. Data is super powerful, please be the type of leader that gives your team early, easy access to information, right? Be a part of the democratization of information and data. It goes a long way in informing the right behaviors and incentivizing your team to do what you want them to do. The next big thing that I take very seriously is setting expectations, right? You've got a new CSM who's just come on board. Let's not assume that they know what you're thinking in your head, right? I always say, like, you can't have people live up to expectations that they are not aware of. So what I've done at ClientSuccess is I made this grid. And I said to my team, hey, listen, this is what I expect of each of you. This does not need to be your grid. You might have a very different scope of expectations for your team, but for me, this is what I expect of my team. Now, regardless, if you have 20 little boxes or 3 boxes, you have to, as a leader, communicate this to your team early and often, right? It's easy to forget this. So please go and figure out what are the things as a leader today that I expect from each of my CSMs, and put those things together and say, great, let me explain these to you. Let me give you examples of this, and make sure that you've got a way to kind of work with them to track that they're doing these things. But set clear expectations early with your team. Like I said, for me, I've created this grid. I thought it was super helpful for my team. Anytime that we're not doing one of the things that we need to, we kind of come back to it, we revisit it. And that's okay. Sometimes we all need a friendly reminder, myself included. So be very clear on your expectations. It could just be a list, right? But just as you're, again, bringing on a new hire, as a leader, even if you don't have time to document all of this, maybe you go and have a conversation with them and it's 30 minutes to say, hey, welcome to our team. As your leader, here's what I expect. Sometimes that step gets skipped, right? Because we're all moving so fast. Again, we're talking about lean teams with not a lot of resources. Sometimes we're moving so fast that we forget to do this, but this is really important. So if you're a leader building out a program, please do not forget to set proper expectations. Create an onboarding plan. This is like the simplest screenshot of a 30-day onboarding plan I can give you. The way that I broke it down was, hey, here's your first 4 weeks. Now, I like to think that onboarding goes on well beyond this. I honestly would say it takes probably a full year if you want to have like a high-performing, knowledgeable professional in your organization. Is definitely like over a year to get there, but create something so that the first 30 days they know what to do. So for me, what I did is I broke this down and said, you're a new CSM, people, process, product, customers. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can kind of pile and pack into each of those little 4 buckets. But then I said, here, week 1, here's what I expect. Week 2, here's what I expect. Week 3, here's what I expect. Week 4. And then just give them something that they can track and check off, right? Some easy to follow matrix. It doesn't have to be this great. It could be more comprehensive. It could be a whole bunch of little tasks and activities. But for me, as a leader, I want to come back at the end of each week and say, hey, do we feel like we did these things? Do we feel good? Did we meet kind of where we're at for week 1? Awesome. Great. And then just be able to manage it. So whether it's you're using a comprehensive product board or you're using Excel, or heck, if you want to take my little slide right here and have something just so that way it guides your conversation, maps back to what you expect from them as well. Accountability is our friend. And then one of the other things that I'll give you here, this is going to be some of the things that I think as a leader are really important in effective CSM management. First, make sure you've got regular one-on-one meetings with your team. If you can't do weekly, do bi-weekly, but I would definitely encourage you that the first week of your new hire, meet with them as often as possible, right? Maybe it's a daily check-in every day at the start of the day. Maybe it's you wrap up at the end of the day to check in and see how their day was, but find time to have regular communication with your new hire. But also make sure you're getting a regular recurring meeting locked down as well. The second thing here is have clear KPIs. Establish how your new hire is going to be measured for the first 30 days of employment. Like I said, I gave you a quick little grid checklist. Maybe that's what you want to use and say, hey, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. CSM, welcome to our team. At the end of 4 weeks, this is how I know that you'll be effectively onboarded into our organization. Let's check off these ideas. So that could be a great way to start to frame that conversation. But understanding how you're measured is really as important as an individual. Again, going back to the expectations. So have those KPIs mapped out. The third thing I have here is that onboarding and training. This is important, right? Support your CSMs with everything that they're going to need to know and where to get that information. So this is whether you put together some framework of this program that I've outlined or you have nothing, right? As a leader, you are accountable for the successful onboarding of your employee. You have to own that. And what I would say is if you can't do everything I've outlined, at the very least, you need to be able to point them in the direction of where they can get what they need to get in order to learn what they need to learn. So please make sure that is a focus of yours, that you are putting the time and effort into getting them properly onboarded and trained. And then last thing, provide coaching and feedback, right? If you are their leader, especially if you're their direct manager, provide coaching, especially early in the process. Sometimes we're quick as leaders to provide constructive feedback, right? Like, hey, it would have been great if you would have asked these questions or done these things. But guess what? As a new hire, you're probably doing a ton of amazing things as well. And as leaders, we need to be recognizing that. I love my team. I brag on them all the time. One of our newer CSMs just had their first customer call this week, and the entire team was celebrating them in Slack. And it was so exciting to see how small milestones like that, it was like their first individual call with a customer where they were leading it, and everyone was so excited for them, right? This is a big milestone in their journey and their career here at ClientSuccess. So make sure that you're celebrating those wins and you're patting them on the back, because people are motivated usually by that positive reinforcement. Sometimes, because we want everyone to get to that place of perfect and learning, it's easy to provide that coaching and feedback, but make sure that you're celebrating those things as well. And so if you've ever attended any of my boot camps, you know that I love to give you some things to avoid or don't do. Here's your don't do list for CSM onboarding. So first thing, don't justify the sink or swim approach because you're early stage. I don't care if your company has 5 people, 10 people, 200 people, right? That whole mindset of like, oh, well, we hired them, they need to figure it out, right? Like that sink or swim mentality, it doesn't work. It's not fair. No one is successful. It doesn't feel good. As a professional who's been there many, many times myself, I'll tell you, I get through it and I'm a swimmer, but it's not fun. Nobody enjoys that. So even if you don't have time to put together a very elaborate plan, please take some of the pieces of the things that I've showed you and start there, right? Progress over perfection, but don't allow them to figure it out independent of everything that you could be providing for them. Number 2, don't speed the process. Give your CSMs a little time. I sometimes see that a new hire will start a company and day 2, they're already getting their full book of customers. And I always have this head scratching moment of, why are we doing that? The reality of it is it's not only a poor experience for your employee, but that's a horrible experience for your customer. This person doesn't know your product. They don't know the company. They don't know the process. They don't even know the people, right? So why or how would you feel like they'd be successful by giving them an entire book too soon? So build in the time. I'm not saying that you got to give them 30 days before you give them customers, although I would recommend it. Please, more than a week. Please set up everyone to be successful. Number 3, don't assume after 30 days that they know everything that they need to know. Keep the process going. Like I said, I actually believe that, I'm at ClientSuccess for over a year, almost a year and a half now, and I don't know everything. I'll be the first to always say that. Most people don't know everything even after a year. Think about it. You have customers who have been using your product for years and they don't know everything about your product. So let's not assume that your CSM is perfect after 30 days. Let's continue to kind of feed them the knowledge and information to continue to grow over time. Number 4, don't forget to celebrate their progress. I know I just said that, but like motivate and recognize. It is not difficult to do this, but for some reason, it's something that's overseen. People don't do it. They don't allocate enough time to it. Celebrate your people, and especially your new people. What they're doing is hard, right? They're learning so much. They're trying to get it right. They're nervous. They're scared. They're feeling all insecure. You know how you can help them navigate that? By telling them they're doing a great job, because guess what? I'm sure they are. And number 5, don't forget that everyone is responsible for the success of a new hire. You're going to need to pull in a lot of people to ensure that this individual is successful, right? I talked about all these cross-functional teams and resources. You've got folks that are building out the assets and the information that we're hoping to use and leverage. Everyone in your company is going to help make or break the onboarding of a new employee. So please pull them in, hold them accountable, ask for their participation, ask for their help, and it goes a long way, right? It's a team effort. We want everyone to feel like as a company, we're welcoming all of our new members on board, and that everyone is happy that they're there. So lots to do, lots to take away. So hopefully this gave you a quick framework of some place to start if you have no way to onboard your CSMs today. Hopefully this gives you a little place to start. So let's open it up to Q&A. I'm going to take a moment to breathe while I open up that Q&A and see what I got in here. All right, so first question I had was from Jillian. I love the expectation grid. Do you have a way that you like to track individual progress and personal reflection? Yes, so I do. Sadly, I'm not doing it yet at ClientSuccess because we are early and, like I said, progress over perfection. So I have the grid, which is helpful. But at other companies, what I did is we had a way to track back KPIs and metrics and performance indicators to help us see like where people are trending. Something else that was super helpful is when we used to do a review process, what we would do is have the CSM rate themselves. What are the areas they feel like they do really well across expectations, where maybe they feel like I'm crushing it here, I do these things really well, and Mr. or Mrs. Manager, I could really use some help in coaching and guidance in these other areas. It's also helpful to allow that self-reflection. And I felt that that's a great way to avoid putting all the ownership on the manager, especially, again, the idea here is that we're all a lean team. So empower your team to self-reflect and figure out where are they excelling and then where are they not doing as well, that you can provide some coaching and feedback, and then go through it together. Right? I think it's always really helpful from a coaching standpoint. Another question I had is, do you ever include clients as a resource or SMEs in your onboarding for CSMs? How might we consider this a long-term or for legacy customers? Absolutely. I think that your customers are your greatest resource of information. I think it's finding the right customers who are willing and able to give any amount of time to help with that. I think we're often really, it's easy for us to go and ask for our customers to be advocates, right? Like, would you mind being a reference? Do you want to do a case study? Do you want to speak at an event? I think it's fair to ask your customers like, hey, would you be interested in being part of our education enablement program? When we have a new hire, can I point them in your direction to learn a little bit more about like what you do in your day-to-day? I'd also recommend, if your customer is comfortable with that, record it. And then you have that in a repository where other folks can watch it in the future. So that way you're also not being a kind of a burden to your customer all the time, especially if you're hiring a lot. But pull your customers into the process. Like I said, at ClientSuccess, it's a little different because we are subject matter experts in our field, but I think it's a great way to get your customers involved. And it always makes them feel good. I think people like when you pull them into things that are going to hopefully eventually benefit them in the long run. Another question we had was, with so many online resources in CS specifically, how do you discern which to focus on? It would be a full-time job if I attended everything that's out there. That's a great question. We are super fortunate as an industry to have a wealth of information. I would just probably start by saying, like, just understand the source of where the information is coming from. LinkedIn is a great resource to kind of go and reference. Like, does this person have a lot of experience and expertise in the field or in the subject matter that they're covering? Maybe they become a credible resource and somebody you want to learn and lean into. So I would say, like, that's a great place to start if you've got an individual. Obviously, there's some organizations that are accredited or they're providing programs around this stuff. They always usually really have great content, but happy to also share out some resources that I personally love in this space. With 1 minute remaining, let's see if I can do it. Where can I see a list or schedule of CS meetup events? Okay, that you mentioned at the beginning. We are getting ready to publish our list of end of Q3, Q4, where will we be? We've got a lot of cities on deck. So I've got Atlanta on my list. I think DC, San Francisco, LA is there. Denver is on the list. So there's a lot of, I think I have Miami on there as well. I think I'm trying to do warm places in the cold months here in New York. So trying to figure out where those are, but we will get that list populated and get that circulated. If you're on today and you have an office building and you're interested in hosting us, please let me know. I'm happy to partner with you. That's usually always our biggest challenge, is finding a place that can accommodate about 100 people to come and join in and have these meetups. So if you want to help me and partner with me and Dave and the folks at ClientSuccess by lending us your space, we're happy to coordinate and bring an awesome CS meetup to your hood. So feel free to reach out to me. So I did it. I got through my whole deck. I got through all the questions that were in the Q&A, and I'm on time. So that is a huge win, and kudos to me, which I will pat myself on the back for that. As I mentioned, today is the last install for this series. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you found a lot of value in joining with me these past couple of weeks. You guys know I love this. It's a labor of love. I put a lot of time and effort into the content, the material. Hopefully you'll join me back here in October. So again, please put placeholders on your calendar right now for every Tuesday in October at 1 Eastern. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. We've got a lot of great content coming your way. So thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great rest of this quarter, and hopefully I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.